This real-side experience would begin in the recreated house of my deceased grandfather, what was the father of my mother. Generally, the real-side recreated physical level houses represent the consciousness, and that, as we may find ourselves positioned inside the houses of others on the real side, this reveals agreement we have with them, that the idea package of a consciousness and effected body forms that we, the real awareness animates, has been installed as agreement then within the consciousness of others, that we can feature directly within their simulated experiences at any moment of our choosing. The door to their consciousness representing homes are always open for us. However, we each will have real-side symbology and situations unique to us, in addition to the broad representational features that are common to all, and for me it is so that the real guides and occasionally DUANE will utilize my grandfather's recreated house as a place of meeting, where assignments are discussed, evaluations of the projects I have been involved with on the real side, etc. Additionally, as I also have shared, the real guides very often will assume the form of my deceased grandfather, as the guides have a tendency to take on the outward appearances of older siblings, parental figures, etc., and so this may reveal as to the choice of the building that serves as a meeting place, for as I said, it is the recreated house that was my grandfather's. And indeed, on this occasion, not only was I present within my grandfather's house, but also my grandfather would be featuring within the building also, and real awareness impressions would provide assurances that this was a real guide, assuming my grandfather's form and not perhaps a deceptive reptilian shapeshifter, as the dark forces are aware of the forms that the guides assume in my experiences, and on occasion will attempt to mimic them, or indeed mimic the forms of DUANE, etc., in an effort to instill a doubt and confusion with the personal self. So always it pays to lean to the real awareness impressions that determine the authenticity of the individuals in our midst, that the beings assuming alternative outer forms are the real guides and not a reptilian or whatever other technologies they may bring to the fore to replicate the outer body types of nufriends, family members, etc., through the use of holograms and so forth. The real awareness as a part of the isness everything reality has access then to every idea of a consciousness that this overall everything reality, the real awareness is, permeates through, and so every idea behind the surface simulated front, the actual beings assuming the alternative outer forms, can be determined and the personal self be apprised, as overall human experience is dictated by the overall agreements that effect it, even though every agreement will be in effect now in isness reality terms, through the additional consciousness ideas of time and space, which have what are then in actuality every consciousness agreement in effect now delayed, a little like how a movie is complete, but through the mechanics of the consciousness effected physical level body forms, so the effects are processed as sequences of time phases, awareness has to sit through a movie that already is completed in actuality, so only certain agreements, certain movies will be processing through as human experience, according to the agreements held most prominently in human consciousness, which have the movie of a choice then selected. And only if the agreement pertaining to the effect movie outcome is maintained will humanity reach the movie's end. Should the agreement change, an alternative human overall experience begins to process through to its physical level culmination. As I said, all agreements that have been human consciousness installed are in effect now, including the ideas the dark forces wish to have as overall human experience, the various depopulation methods, and we can be shown these various potentialities on the real side that, as I said, will only come to pass on the physical if maintained long enough as the forerunning human consciousness agreement, that the effect of the agreement be actualized physical level-wise. As all potentialities are present in overall human consciousness, including the more insidious dark force agendas, whereas I have been shown on the real side is the possibility of humanity becoming robotized, the technology controlling the humans through their robotic vehicles, and to the extent even of the entire Earth becoming mechanized, should the agreements pertaining to such a scenario become the forerunning idea in human consciousness. Humanity, unaware generally of the potential danger this may pose in regards to the control the dark forces can then exact over humanity through technology, as this is then always a possibility, that of complete Earth mechanization, coupled with the possibility that new friends may find themselves still positioned on the planet Earth when this occurs, so a preparation for this is necessary. For it seems that of all those likely to in some way survive the robotization will be the new friends, as though through their processes of awareness, the new you, song, etc., so mitigated is a robotization that those immersed in their personal selves only will experience. For as agreements in the human consciousness facilitate the potentiality of the dark forces to be able to robotize the human race, as the process of awareness involves a facing and releasing of all idea agreements of the consciousness, including all the insidious, dark force installed agreements that if held to will effect as heightened controlling circumstances for humanity, so the new friends will be, as I said, those less likely to experience the effects that the rest of humanity will, through a virtue of the dark force controlled consciousness agreed to in its entirety by the personal self-immersed humans. That even should new friends be present on Earth where such a scenario be so, they may well find themselves retaining their human forms, as every other human becomes as robots, and the entire Earth mechanized. There has been revealed on a previous real-side experiences I have shared many options available to the new friends, as the consciousness progressively released will present as less limitation and restriction as experienced events. Everything from a possible planet relocation to the assumption of alternative body forms that afford greater survivability in the face of a detrimentally transformed environment, no longer conducive to supporting the human form, and where continuing with the process of awareness on the earth is no longer feasible within the more fragile human body types. In this real side experience, as I was in communication with the real guide in my grandfather's meeting place house, what was taking place was a discussion then of preparatory measures in the face of this robotization and mechanized earth world potentiality. One of the options would be along the lines of utilizing the psychic science facilities of the created self, the ethereal body form, that although such wouldn't be necessary on the real side, as the real awareness can effectively manipulate any creational situation as it sees fit in regards to the survival of its inserted simulated forms, the physical level is another matter. On the physical, we are more resigned to the idea agreements which affect our current limitation in regards to body form vulnerability and positional restrictions, and although we are releasing these limitation of ideas, the physical processes the effects of doing so far more slowly as it will, as opposed to instantaneously as it is in reality and on the real side. However, accessing then the psychic science facilities of the ethereal vehicle allows for a stepping aside from these limitations. That manipulation of our physical level experiences, irrespective of the consciousness agreement ideas that prevent this as being possible, as though the very laws of physics, which are simply agreement restrictions, are bypassed. Specifically, an unlocking of the psychic science ability to bend and alter the very simulation each earth-bound nufriend resides in as an aid to survival, and as with this particular earth-complete mechanization potentiality and possibility, it would be more along the lines of being able to manipulate specifically anything technological and metallic. I would as though start small and perform metal bending exercises before the watching guide, a little like Uri Geller or the scene from The Matrix where the child bends the spoon, so I would be altering the shape and structure of a selection of metallic cutlery and instruments. And now the scene would switch. I would find myself with a group of other aware beings, and we were operating within the very potential earth-mechanized overall human experience, as though to practice our abilities. As I said, all agreements in all consciousness are in effect now, regardless of they being present as a current physical level human experience, and we can be shown or indeed experience any of the ideas that human consciousness or any consciousness comprises of. This can serve then as a valuable source of a training or preparation should the particular idea simulation we are operating within become as a physical level experiences. And the group and I were indeed positioned within the simulation of the completely mechanized earth. All humanity, those who had remained locked into their consciousness and were thus the effects of themselves, including now this particular overall human experience, were also robotized. Were we to have survived robotization through the agreement releasing of the consciousness the awareness process entails, we of course would be very vulnerable, as the robot humans also were programmed to seek out any human survivors who had evaded the robotic transformation and either convert them through the transmission of nanotech or destroy them if for whatever reason this mechanism of robotization failed to work, as it may well do for the nufriends lacking the same extent of agreements all humanity will have. However, with our particular access to psychic science skills, so we could manipulate the metallic environment as we saw fit, we could repel in equal measure any attacking human robot by a simple motion of the hand. We even were rendered immune to any type of projectile, be it a bullet or of a more sophisticated nature, as though we had complete immunity from what was overall a mechanized technological world. I'm uncertain what would happen in regards to sustaining the body forms, as there was nothing consumable, but perhaps was the possibility of a body altering in addition, that the intake of anything external to the body isn't required. For I was shown on previous real-side experiences the possibility of the assumption of robotic forms also to survive in such a mechanized environment, but forms that would however not be controlled via the technology, and be simply alternative vehicles for awareness to operate through. As I said, a training and preparation that should for whatever reason I and other nufriends be stationed on Earth, should this potentiality come to pass, consciousness adjustments and refinements have been exacted where these abilities and perhaps alternative mechanized affected body forms be available, as an aid to the continued process of awareness on what would be a very inhospitable planet from an average human body form and capability perspective. The group and I were removed from the potential mechanized human overall experience, and as we now stood in a position where white golden light was its only feature, the impressions were that further adjustments were being made to our consciousnesses in regards to preparatory measures for the potential future view just revealed. The best I can describe it was as though of 3 levels that had to be reached regarding the consciousness alteration and the unlocking of these abilities. This the group and myself would achieve, and as a final step we were repositioned in an open countryside setting and were as though tested as to our abilities by a dueling psychic science skills with another aware being who was on his own respective is recognizing a process. He was in the capacity of a kind of a trainer then, and would have a unique ability involving the utilization of frequencies which he could wield in his defense, or indeed offense, if he so chose. That as I and my group were able to withstand his frequencies, perhaps frequencies we may have to be able to withstand on the potential mechanized Earth, and also that we were able to nullify his offensive, this proved we had the marshalling of the requisite psychic science abilities should we find ourselves on an Earth that becomes robotized and mechanized. The group also were presented with a curious tome of informations pertaining to this process of ability unlocking, as though certain steps were required on the part of each group member also. Ultimately, as everything is based on agreement and intent, essentially we have but to place our agreement which will facilitate what I have shared here, that it be effected as experiential simulation, as though the completing of the tasks as outlined in the tomes, were really just representing the agreement we were placing in regards to the consciousness alterations and effected abilities thus unlocked. Each member of the group and myself also had assigned to us a being that reminded me a little of the depictions of elementals, overall formless but with the vague semblance of body form features. These were very aware beings, as impressions revealed, and were assuming then the post of additional protection for each member of the group and myself. They would now accompany us everywhere on the real side, and also on the physical, though very likely unseen by even the new friends they are assigned to from the physical level body form view. The experience would end there, as I said, serving as a consciousness altering and ability unlocking preparation for the potential Earth mechanization that may occur, should agreements pertaining to it be maintained, especially through the technology.
Yeah, that's great, Kevin. And yes, again, a step at a time, because it's a big adventure here, very, very big. And it's not hocus pocus. It's not going to happen overnight. So it takes a lot of people to step up and do something real. And each person counts as they focus realistically to see more than just their personal self.